let's queer up trans rights. Federal judge says DeSantis spread misinformation to get anti-trans restrictions. A federal judge who heard a lawsuit challenging Florida's restrictions on gender-affirming care says Republican Governor Ron DeSantis repeatedly spread false information to push through policies that would limit access to various transition-related treatments. U.S. Judge Robert Hinkle of the Northern District of Florida made the remarks during the final day of trial, finding that Florida health authorities and DeSantis initially cast the state's law-bearing minors from accessing gender-affirming treatments as a necessary step to prevent children from being mutilated. But Hinkle said the law actually prevents transgender individuals from accessing any health care treatments and affirm their gender identity. The restrictions on gender-affirming care were first enacted in March after the Florida Board of Medicine and Florida Board of Osteopathic Medicine approved rules to limit the accessibility of hormonal and surgical interventions. DeSantis subsequently signed a bill in May solidifying those rules into state law. Under the law, 3 Florida families with transgender children then sued Florida over those restrictions. During the trial, Mohammad Jazil, a lawyer from the state, argued that the state is intended to protect the public in the area of medicine. Thomas Redburn, an attorney representing the plaintiffs, told Hinkle about the devastating repercussions of the law for transgender youth, and the families asserted that the law was discriminatory. Hinkle said he would decide whether the law is discriminatory and whether to block it from being enforced as quickly as he can in 2024. Now, what do we all think about that?
You were saying, Steve, that Hinkle was the person who helped us with marriage equality?
Correct. Hinkle was the judge back in 2014, 2015, who declared that Florida's ban against marriage, the constitutional ban against same-sex marriage, was unconstitutional. And that was the basis for the case that went eventually to the Supreme Court. It was one of those cases. Of course, the Obergefell case was the one that they actually ruled on. But Florida began marriage months before the Obergefell ruling. So I guess it was January 2nd, maybe January 6th of 2015. That's when couples were allowed to marry here in Florida, which was 6 months before the final Supreme Court ruling. Judge Hinkle was the judge.
Wow.
Okay. Well, I mean, so what do we think about this? You know, I mean, the spreading of misinformation is deadly to some people. It could be fatal. Again, you know, transition-related care is not gender reassignment surgery, okay? And that's what people need to understand. Like, this is just giving you, you know, transition-related care is just teaching you how to maneuver everyday life in, as the gender that you feel you are, right? That you are. That's all it is. It has nothing to do with making, having gender reassignment surgery that so many people keep on talking about. Oh, we're putting little kids at risk. No child is getting gender reassignment. It's just not happening. And people believe this. People believe these lies.
All gays are pedophiles. We're coming for you in your bathrooms. We're going to indoctrinate your children. Gay people are lurking in bushes to attack you. This is nothing new. This is nothing new whatsoever. This is a playbook that goes back to the 70s and I'm sure much further. We have a quack surgeon general in the state of Florida. He basically does whatever the governor says. This is important because DeSantis will likely not be the next Republican president. At some point, we will have a Republican president. It probably won't be DeSantis, but it doesn't matter because he is laying a blueprint here in Florida, how to politicize everything. This is him politicizing medicine. And he will, or the next Republican president will go to Washington and say, this is what we're going to do for the Surgeon General. You are going to be a yes man to a person, not to science. And that's the scary thing. This is going to happen nationally at some point because it's happening here, unless we can stop it here. This judge gives me a little bit of hope. And he writes incredibly well. And at least a few years ago, because I remember from the ruling back then, I haven't really followed up, but it has a very good standing rate on appeal. The decisions hold up.
I would just like to say, when the word mutilation was a word that I saw DeSantis use in his debate with Charlie Crist. So even before he was reelected, he made reference to the mutilation of children. And what was so untrue about that was the fact that children were not having these surgeries. They just weren't. And to talk about people who are legal adults making choices about affirmation surgery, but the idea of mutilating someone who has had a mastectomy, whether male or female, that word mutilation sounds awful, but the fact is that it can be life-saving surgery.
Completely.